This journey will guide inside the ride where we fly. Virtual roads touch the sky. Join us here, don't be shy. Inside the ride, yeah, we hide.
Welcome to Inside the Ride by MyWhoosh. I am your host, Cy Brady, and of course, as always, I'm joined by co-host Matt Smithson. Matt, how are we doing today?
Fantastic today, mate. We've got a great guest. Lots of exciting things happening here at MyWhoosh, so can't wait to get into it and have a bit of a chat about things a little bit different here at MyWhoosh.
Yeah, a little bit different, and involving another activity that doesn't involve wheels. And you can see the man on screen already, so I think it's only right that we bring him in straight away. We've got Chris Williams here from Supertri. Chris, how are you this wonderful day?
Very, very well. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's good to see you both again. Sun is shining here in the UK. It's for the end of Jan, so I'll take that. And yeah, looking forward to it. I think, yeah, it's obviously maybe something a bit different talking triathlon with you guys this morning. I know that yeah, running and biking is very much in your wheelhouse, but yeah, we'll get there with swimming. But yeah, looking forward to this chat.
Well, we can maybe let the listeners know. We were just talking pre-show there, and like I say, me and Matt more on the cycling side, and I guess that's the history of MyWhoosh as well. But you mentioned that you've got a bit of a personal challenge when it comes to running, because of course triathlon, running, they're synonymous with each other. And yeah, when you give a bit of background on Supertri, but let's start with you and your background, and give us a little bit of insight to this personal running challenge that it sounds like you and Matt discussed last time you met.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll start there because it's look, I'm an adopted member of the endurance community, to be honest. I didn't grow up with you know, bike for me when I was growing up was kind of just about freedom, right? I'd get out on the bike and ride around my mate's house, and it wasn't a sport for me, cycling growing up. It was just kind of getting me from A to B. I didn't really find endurance sport until probably 2013. I think 2013 was the first time I signed up for any sort of endurance effort, right? I signed up for my first marathon back in 2013. And I think I had that moment that probably most people who listen to this are gonna resonate with, which is that moment where you realize kind of the power of endurance sport, right? That something which, you know, as someone who grew up in team sports, you get so much out of team sports. But what you get out of endurance sport is that, you know, what you do really get out what you put in, right? There's almost that linear sort of cause and effect of, so long as you stay fit and healthy, you can kind of yeah, put the work in and you'll see the results. And then I felt that transfer into other areas of my life. So I was very much kind of brought in there. It probably took me a while still to make it a big part of my lifestyle, but for sure nowadays, I mean, endurance sport's a massive part of my everyday. I try and sort of get out and do something every day. And yeah, when we were over in Neom at the end of the season last year, I was sat down, and I think in Neom, you get to spend a lot of time with people, right? There wasn't a huge amount of different options going on. We were all sort of together, and we're around the dinner table, and I ask a question. I sometimes come up with silly thoughts, Si, and I said, I wonder how much Alex Yee would have to carry, right, for me to beat him in a 10-kilometer race. And that was the kind of dinner table conversation. And I was pretty hurt and upset by the answers that came back. I think some people said something like 40 kilos.
I'm assuming Matt was at the table, and he can be blunt and direct sometimes. We know Matt.
Matt was the one who got his calculator out. He started sort of working out the sums, and he came with a very precise approach. Other people were just kind of throwing me under the bus. And at that point, I realized that the people around the table didn't think much of my running ability, and maybe I should pay attention to that. Maybe they were right. So yeah, no, I set myself a bit of a goal at the start of this year's side to try and get a bit quicker. And yeah, I'm racing this weekend a 10K, so let's see how I go.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's really good. And let us know how you get on with it. We don't have to name any numbers or times there, but believe me, I know what
You'll hear about it if I hit the goal. You'll hear about it. If you don't hear anything, then you know the answer. But yeah.
Well, we're going to ask either way. Me and Matt will ask the question on the next show anyway, whether you like it or not, because you didn't know we were going to ask you about that. So we've put you straight there. But you've obviously got the cap on there with the infamous S of Supertri. So give us a bit of background on Supertri then, because it's quite, I mean, Supertri, without looking at even Supertri E, is quite an exciting different format, you know, from that point of view. So just give us a bit of background on the organization and the event.
Yeah, so Supertri really is a very innovative format of triathlon. We sort of took a sport that for many years has been serving a very passionate but quite a niche kind of community of athletes, and tried to put it out there in a way that's going to really kind of attract the masses. And so that's super short races. We get athletes back to back, 3 times through, really kind of built for high jeopardy, high drama. And yeah, so we're now sort of 7 or 8 years old. We threw in a pandemic in the middle there, and when that sort of struck, we really pivoted, and with that, Supertri E was formed, and we kind of entered into this space of, okay, how do we achieve on the goals, but without the ability to do these real world events? So yeah, we took Supertri, the format of high speed, sort of that high adrenaline racing that we've just discussed, but we placed it into arenas, right? So we'd have athletes swimming in pools, they'd be cycling on their static bikes using turbos, and then running on curved treadmills. And in doing that, we actually realized that we had something. I think it was a kind of crazy concept at first. And actually, this is what first brought my eyes onto Supertri as an organization. I was at the time working in cycling, and, I started realizing, okay, these guys are doing some really cool, innovative stuff that seems like it's absolutely resonating with where the community is going. Yeah, so if you look at Supertri on the surface, everything we do is about how do we innovate to make the sport of triathlon better? How do we make it more entertaining and drive accessibility through that, right? I think there's no doubt about it. There's major barriers to triathlon, and I think it's really important that we acknowledge that as an organization in this sport. The time that it takes to commit to the training in 3 disciplines is really significant. The cost, obviously, of all the equipment, the different memberships, the aspects like that. Cycling alone is obviously, quite intensive on that side, but when you start bringing in the other things too, it really stacks up. And then beyond that, you think about actually like the feasibility. So many people can't really access the facilities every day to come and train in triathlon. But I think as you start to look into the data of the audience that we're trying to engage, the majority of the people that we reach and that we actually that have the potential to inspire and connect with, they're not actually doing triathlon day in, day out. Most of them are single discipline, or they have a preferred domain. We know that over 70% of these people are either kind of runners primarily or cyclists primarily, and some a smaller degree, but swimmers primarily. And then they come into the sport of triathlon, they're drawn in to do a specific event. And then from there, that potentially becomes something that drives them forward and becomes their sport. So yeah, for Supertri, our goal is to bring more people in, right? Do that amplification of the sport through great events and great content that brings people in and gets more eyes on the sport of triathlon, ultimately to try and grow.
It's funny you say some of that. So listening to your talk then, Chris, and I think about the journey of MyWhoosh and the collaboration, and I've had a number of people ask me why. Why does the Supertri thing align with MyWhoosh? Outside of Supertri E, which I think is a great concept, and I know we'll talk about that today, I was actually thinking, knowing we were going to have a chat today, and I was thinking about my journey as a semi-endurance athlete, and I started in triathlon. I don't tell people this these days. I went to the World Championships in 1995 in Australian junior teams in triathlon. I grew up doing that. My best mate was CEO of Triathlon Australia, ex-world champion. I grew up living in houses with Chris McCormack, who went on and won, Hawaiian World Championships and those types of things. But then I thought about our team. I come from a triathlon background originally. Phil, that does our customer service, has led off the bike at the Hawaiian Ironman. Lisa, that looks after the female community and the key communities for us, she's won Ironman age group world championships around the world. I'm betting that Simon has done a triathlon at one point or another. Rod, our head of physics, is a triathlete. So you talk about the touching on all the individual sports. Well, our entire team is actually triathletes that have just come back to riding their bikes because the time has just got a little bit away from them and life catches up and whatever those things are. Or you're a terrible swimmer like me, or you can't run like Phil. There's those options why we get out of it as well. But there's such a crossover, I think, and you talking about doing a marathon and then into the triathlon space. So for me, MyWhoosh being aligned with Supertri was just saying, hey, you might be the runner that does the odd triathlon and follows triathlon, or you might be, the swimmer that follows this, and here's this great platform you can use for free. You can run on it, you can ride on it, and look at how we can bring this together for Supertri E. So to me, this actually works better than us supporting a Gran Fondo somewhere or some things like that, because it opens us up to a new audience, but it's exactly what the platform is designed for, in reality, to save you time to be able to do this at home, right? So it's a win-win everywhere.
For that reason.
Yeah.
You're bang on. I think, Matt, there's something to be said for, the format of triathlon that we focus on short distance primarily, right? But in order to be a high performing athlete in the short distances, there's a massive role to be for the aerobic base. Obviously, these athletes are still training huge volumes at the top end in terms of the elites, right? I think I saw the guy who just broke the European record and the 10K, we're talking about running again, looking at his training volumes and the amount of time that they're actually spending. Even these high speed athletes, volume is a massive part of that,
Yep.
right? But then also, how do you dial into the speed workouts, which are really quite challenging to do sometimes? Like I live out here in the hills, out in the countryside. If I'm going to get on my bike and go and do some sort of intervals, it's actually really challenging to do that out on the road, right? Whether you're talking about traffic concerns or whether I'm talking about just the landscape. And then you throw in different environments, different climates into the question. Obviously, Matt, where you are out in the Middle East right now, there's going to be
Yep.
large parts of the year where people are not going to feel comfortable or it's appropriate to get out and do those sessions on the bike, whether we're talking about those high intensity sessions or some of those long base building pieces. So for us, I think, technology has to be an enabler, right? We have to help more people feel able to get that training in and do it in a convenient, cost-effective way. And to be honest, this is a big part of why I think this is such an exciting partnership for us. You guys help remove some of these barriers that we see to the sport. We're trying to drive that engagement, but the action that we want people to take off the back of that is we really want to see more people running, swimming, cycling, right? That's the thing
Yeah.
that we really want to drive. And how do we kind of give them the keys to sort of, where possible, cut some of the corners and get that, removing costs, removing time concerns is a massive part of our goals.
And that's an interesting thing that we talk about as well there. And a lot of people say, oh, you guys are just trying to sell MyWhoosh, trying to sell Supertri, trying to do whatever. All any of us are trying to do is to get more people doing what we like doing, right? We're just lucky enough to have jobs in these spaces that enable people in which to do that. And it's a Supertri thing as well. Take it to the market, show people what they can do, get some more kids involved. And that's why I love the Supertri E. You're at the pool, kids can go to the pool. I'm talking kids from 12 to 16. Parents don't want them out riding on the road and all of that. They can jump on the trainer on MyWhoosh. They can do, they can run on the treadmill. They can do all these things that gets difficult in big cities and all of those sort of things. But I remember when you and I first met, we talked about, is this the right fit for Supertri and Supertri E and MyWhoosh? And a lot of our discussion was around innovation. It was not about, oh, I reckon I can bring 300 more riders and we can do this and we can do that. It was very much right from the start around, how can MyWhoosh assist in the innovation that Supertri want to do to deliver something different? Now, we've delivered a whole new world now that's going to be released in conjunction with Supertri E. I think it's a 2-kilometre bike circuit and a 1 kilometre run circuit specifically built for that event. There's a little bit of a hill to make it a little bit harder on the bike. We can use that for different events for us that's accessible to other people, but it's a design that we've put together to suit the needs of Supertri and make more entertainment and bringing those things to the market. And I think that's where Supertri really are leading the game here. And it's not about, you're not going to get another 5,000 or even 50 athletes trying to qualify to join a team for Supertri, but it's entertainment that brings more people to the sport. They come and watch their heroes. They come and become involved and think, I can do that, right? And that's what I did as a 14-year-old kid. I saw triathlon. I'm like, I want to do that. And too many years later, we're sitting here having this conversation.
Use the word innovation, Matt, and I think that word gets thrown around, right? And it's a buzzword in sport. It's a buzzword probably broader than that too. But we try and think about innovation in a very actionable way. You know Michael very well, our CEO. We are a very action-oriented organization. When we have ideas, we try and deliver them. And innovation to us, we think of it really quite simply. How do we make this better? Right? That's what we mean when we talk about innovation. We're like, how do we make this better? And sometimes for us, innovation has been, let's create something completely new. Like we've literally torn up the rule book and been like, right, we're going to create a completely new format of the sport. And we believe that's going to make it better for people to engage with. Doesn't mean that the long formats are not interesting or engaging. We actually believe they really are. They have a massive role to play and they are a huge part of what drives the passion in the community of triathlon. But as an entry point for many people, it's not attainable, right? Both from a participant perspective or as a spectator. People can't sit there for 8 hours and watch an Ironman race and feel engaged with that, right? It's not made for that. But what we do is in those short, sharp events, which we center in single places, so either in arenas from a Supertri E perspective or city centers from a Supertri League perspective, we give people that touch point. It's 1 hour of racing, right, for the men, 1 hour of racing for the women. They race in teams, which is unique in the sport of triathlon. Obviously, it's a massive part of what drives the engagement across the cycling ecosystem. And bringing that teams dynamic into our world was a no-brainer. But where we, again, think about trying to make things better is if we took cycling now, if you created the cycling model now, you would probably look at, okay, and how do we build men and women's teams in conjunction, right? They currently operate in two completely different worlds, as it were. Albeit there's events now that kind of offer a platform for both. They are very separated. What we've done is we build men's and women's teams so that they compete as individuals against one another, but as a team, they're a collective, competing for the same points on the same leaderboard. And so, yeah, these are modern values that drive our organization, and we believe it's all kind of geared around, again, engagement. How do we get more people to feel engaged in this sport, inspired by it, and potentially go and take it up? And where technology, Matt, coming back to that first conversation you and I had, and I remember it, is that at the same time as we see some really strong, promising trends in endurance sport, like take running at the moment. Running is booming right now. Like there's no two ways about that. And it's accessible. And I think accessibility is a massive part of why that's seeing it, but it's also become more culturally relevant. It's bridged from probably being more like a nerdy niche into kind of cool mainstream culture in a lot of ways. And like we're trying to do that work in triathlon too. And at the same time though, you see kids are spending more time than ever. Obviously, it's drastic, the numbers here, looking at screens on handheld devices, right? You've got higher than ever levels of childhood obesity in pretty much all of the nations that we operate in. And so you've got this dual challenge here of, okay, there's this real passion amongst certain communities where it's almost polarizing. People are getting either way more active or way less active. And if you look at the things that those people who are less active are doing, right, gaming and other things and social networking and actually the way they communicate with one another now, platforms like MyWhoosh are really appealing to us, because not even just where you are now, but as we look ahead, I think, I know we'll probably talk about this in a minute, but where we can go with that and actually gamifying the experience for people and learning from some of the techniques and things that are driving such success in spaces like gaming and bringing that into our sport is something that we're really interested to do. We think that's an innovation that will genuinely make what we do better.
It's a bridge we have to cross at some point, the gamification of what we do. There's no doubting that. And the more time I spend in this chair, I suppose, the closer I get to how we do that. But even from our side, from a MyWhoosh perspective, we talk about innovation and technological advancement. Our running existed. It was okay, but we've now had to get it right. Like it's really good in our game now, thanks to our partnership with you guys. But we've also built some things that people don't know about, where we now have a system where you can start an event when the swim starts and it runs through and it'll do, your times for your swim, your bike and your run. We can have the same account logged into the bike and the run at the same time, so that not the avatar crosses over, but your avatar picks up without a different login. There's so many of these different things that we would have never thought about doing that can be utilized for so many other things for MyWhoosh. So, there's benefits all around with, I suppose change or opportunity drives innovation for us a little bit. And I think that came along with the Supertri piece. And I just can't wait to kick off Supertri E on, what is it? Forgive me if I'm wrong, 5th or 7th of April? 5th. Yeah, 5th of April. Yeah. And I can't wait to get there again. I had the time of my life last year, so it was good. I went to
it looked like a phenomenal event last year, but you're both there during that discussion. You mentioned several things that really stood out to me. Entertainment, is one of them. And that accessibility is another there as well. And Chris, you spoke about that as well. That accessibility is really important. If we look at other sports, and cycling is not quite got there yet, but if you look at golf, you look at cricket, you mentioned running as well, that the most successful events that take place now are the parkruns. 5K, short, accessible again. And my kids go to a parkrun on a Sunday because you can start doing that from the age of 4, and I think it's 2 or 3K they do. So I think, again, that's just part of that conversation, right? Of looking forward. Me and Matt, we're a little bit older now, I guess. And what we're building isn't for us and people in our age group, it's for that next generation and engaging that next generation. We've seen this happen in other sports, and it's great that I think we're starting to see that now in triathlon and cycling as well to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
Onto that quickly, Si, because the thing that I love about endurance sport is, and I think, let me say, the best triathlon event I've ever been to is the Chicago Triathlon. And it's an event now that we own and operate, and we did so for the first time in 2024. It's the only triathlon that I've really experienced that has that sort of mega event feel of it. And I know there are others out there, but this was, as I told you guys earlier in the call, I joined the sport at the back end of 2023. I came across from cycling, and prior to that, I was very much in team sports. So I try and retain that perspective as much as possible of actually, not assuming that everyone's going to love this, and not assuming that this is and should be a major part of everyone's lives, because I think that's a dangerous starting point to come from. It's often the perspective that passion brings, and I'm a cricket fan myself. I love Test cricket, right? I'm a massive fan of Test cricket, right? If we were to create a format now to be successful, obviously it wouldn't be Test cricket. If you started again from now, you would build something much more like what we've got with T20 and seeing the success of that. And so you do have to make sure you're building something that's relevant to the audience and the people that and meet them where they're at. And the thing that's great about parkrun, as you say, Si, is I believe it appeals to so many different motivations. Everybody who's on the start line at the local parkrun is there more or less. There's a couple of people who are probably trying to win the race. Almost everybody else is there, and they're still going to feel like a winner at the end.
Yep.
And that's the same at the triathlon. When I think back to Chicago last year, there's a couple of people who are trying to genuinely win the race, and the other 8,500 people still feel like winners at the end. So how do you create things that appeal to multiple different motivations and are really net positive in their impact? And what I mean by that is, okay, these are sort of experiences that then can become major transformations in people's lives, become embedded in their lifestyle. And I think that's where we have to move beyond that just specific event touch point into much more quality and high frequency interactions through virtual and technology, but then also doing it in a way that, as I say, appeals to multiple different motivations. It can't just be, this is something for your ardent core triathletes who really actually are already kind of embedded. It's also something that, as we just discussed, appeals to the youngsters coming through who, may not have any interest in our professional athletes. They may not have any interest in the long formats of the sport, but actually, if we can engage them in ways that will make them feel inspired to do more running, swimming, cycling, that's something that we think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll come with added gamification as well, and other events that we do alongside that. Having said that entertainment point of view and that engagement point of view, again, myself and Matt, we interviewed Tadej Pogacar and Peter Sagan, and we were both clearly fans of those two cyclists, for example, and that accessibility is also important, right? And that's something I think that I do want to just talk on this, gents, because I know you both sort of initiated this in those initial discussions of now we've got a vehicle, right? And we did this, Matt, with the Tadej ride, the cafe ride that we did. We've got a vehicle with the live coaching with these cafe rides that the athletes and the former athletes like Tim Don as well, who was there in the prime when I was involved with triathlon and inspired me to start running again in the pool. We've got a vehicle now that those athletes, or our community and your community and younger athletes and people like me, can engage and actually interact with these athletes of yours as well.
For sure, I think that's a massive thing that we've tried to do. So I know through the season last year, back end of 2024, we were capturing a load of content with our athletes, which is going to live on MyWhoosh as video on demand and allow people to come and tap into that when they feel they want to. But also, I know that it's a big part of what we've got coming up in the build up to Supertri E, and I'm excited to do this, is offer those live experiences with some of our top names, whether that's ambassadors like Tim or some of the current athletes. To get that interaction and add that value into the community is something that we believe is really, really important. We can build community through doing that, with clubs, with groups, and we can offer a touch point for those entities to connect with their own people, right, and build around it as well. So I see that, by doing the big bits well on our side, the benefits kind of trickle down really, really well, right? I've just been speaking with one of my team this week in Chicago. It was minus 21 degrees in Chicago this week. And there's not going to be too many people getting out on the roads, but actually, how do you still connect with your mates and have that interaction? Virtual has to be the solution there. In many situations, I do remember from my time in cycling when I was working British Cycling, every year we would run a significant amount of surveys to understand what are the key barriers, right? And what are the things that are stopping people from getting on their bikes. And this is obviously in the UK, so it's different in different parts of the world. But number one was always safety, right? People didn't feel safe out on the roads. And I think that's a pretty British problem, but it's also definitely been prevalent in other places where I've gone and tried to ride my bike. And then beyond that, obviously you have things like cost, time, and these are all the things that we're talking about here. How do we remove those barriers? And technology has to be a big part of that.
Yeah, and while we talk about those, my wife and I had this discussion again the other night because we're about to announce the new lot of cafe rides at MyWhoosh in the next week or so. And I've been riding for 35 years. My wife's been riding for 15 years. We both reckon the best ride we've ever done was the cafe ride with Tadej. The way that it felt, and not selling that because we're MyWhoosh, it was just game changing. And the more accessibility we can bring that through triathlon, through cycling, through whatever, and that entertainment aspect of it. Like we rode for 45 minutes or whatever it was, never thought once about how hard we were going. We were engaged the whole time. And when we come down to it, as we always say, we're in the entertainment industry. You are, I am, Sai is. That's what we do. And to entertain, break down those barriers, because indoor has always been difficult, and cycling is tough riding indoors. To me, running on a treadmill is just the worst thing I can ever think of doing in my entire life, right? And people are stuck indoors having to do it. I've grown up where weather's not a problem. In Australia, you can ride and run outside any time. But the rest of the world, you can't do that. And so bringing the entertainment across into this triathlon space is important as well, because you've got two times you're stuck indoors doing something that has not historically been exciting or engaging. So it's on us to bring that. And from a running perspective, that's what we're really working on. We're working on, having some my bunches. So, groups running at 5 minute, 6 minute K pace, 4 minute K pace running around. We're working on training programs. We're working on, different metrics coming up in the game, all of those things, because again, we're just helping people pass the time while they're doing their exercise, right? That's really what we're trying to do. And the easier it is to pass the time, the easier it is to get through the session. And then step two is when you're entertaining somebody, that's what brings them back to doing what we want them doing. Now that I come back to the Tadej ride, I could not have ridden for 3 months because I can't be bothered. Life's got in the way. Someone tells me the Tadej ride's on again, I'm going to kit up and jump on, right? Because the entertainment value of that outweighs the entertainment value of anything else that I'm doing at that point in time. And that's where gamification, where all of the entertainment in the indoor space, where eventually we'll end up in a time where running and riding indoors will be more entertaining than doing it outdoors. And that's what we've all started to piece together in the last little while.
Well, I think Matt, the point you make there about Tadej, right? He's an inspiration to a lot of people. Okay, but there's also then it comes back to that point I'm really passionate about, which is about how do you make sure your strategy is one that appeals to multiple different motivations. I think that is one component of a really effective strategy, right? And then how do you build those other components to make sure that you're tapping into those other motivations? Because the kids down the school near me, they don't know who Tadej is, right?
Correct.
And actually, maybe at some point in their journey, they're going to. But for us now, actually, what are the things that inspire them? Maybe it's avatars from Fortnite. Maybe
Correct.
it's something that is more topically relevant, culturally relevant within that demographic that we need to increase our awareness about. And I constantly feel sort of shocked by how quickly things are moving in that space. But when you see the amount of time being spent in worlds like Roblox, games like Fortnite with young people, it is really important to look at, okay, what are the reasons why they're doing that? Is there a way that we can learn from that, from these sort of active elements that we're trying to bring into play? And I guess this is kind of talking far into the future, but why we were inspired to work with MyWhoosh is because I think the platform that you have and the gaming engine that you're built on has that ability and flexibility to allow us to get creative within the virtual world. And that's something that's really exciting for us. I think probably going to come on to talk about that in a minute, Si, about the worlds that we're trying to develop in Supertri E.
Yeah, and I guess we got to talk about the event in a bit more detail, right? So, Supertri E, it's taking place at the London Aquatics Arena. I think you said it was the 4th or 5th of April there as well. And Matt, I'm not sure if you've ever been to that venue. It was the pool that was built for the 2012 Olympics. A phenomenal
Yeah,
place.
it's awesome. I went for Supertri E last year, and one of my hobbies or goals in life is to go to all the modern Olympic cities and see what's left from the Olympics, right? So I had a great time there. I went and checked out the velodrome. I went around the park where all that was on. So yeah, it was really cool I'd been to London obviously, but I'd not been to that site before. So yeah, that was one tick off the box for me. So it's a really good venue. So the way that you can see the pool and the way that there's accessibility to everyone and everything, the transport in and out, so it's easy for people to get to. The place was packed last year. You were in and out. You weren't stuck there all day like you can get to in some of these events. So it was a really, really good experience, and I think it'll be better this year with better graphics and different worlds and a bit more fun.
There's a few traps on the way to the train station though, Matt, aren't there?
Yes, there are.
But there's a few. But
Yeah.
so I think it's an incredible venue for it, right? It's why we're coming back to the London Aquatic Centre. I think it's a proper arena that we have there, and you can build that atmosphere that for a sport like triathlon you don't often get. You don't get sort of stands of fans sort of congregated around the whole race. It's very hard to get that in any endurance sport, right? We obviously have packed roadsides and so on, but to have this stadium-like atmosphere for our sport is really special, and that wouldn't be very engaging if it wasn't for obviously the worlds that we are able to project and the avatars and the way that they actually provide that sort of engagement, drama and jeopardy that we've spoken about. That all has to come through what happens through MyWhoosh.
Yeah. No.
So in terms of the format of the day then, because I know you've got multiple rounds, just give us a bit of insight of what the day will look like, in terms of how many rounds, how does it stack up that athletes can get to the finals?
No, it's pretty simple, to be honest, right? So athletes will have their heats, and then from the heats they'll go into it's direct qualification into the final. So it's the morning is about getting athletes getting themselves on the start line for that final, and then the top 10 men, the top 10 women will progress, and then the finals will happen on the live broadcast in the evening there on the Saturday night, 5th of April in London. So yeah, I think what you see in that is there's no holding back in the heats, because this is a very, very high octane format, and it's actually also very hard to train, right? You don't have that many chances as an athlete to train where you're coming straight off the runner into the pool, right? It's something that's really hard to replicate, even for professional athletes. Yeah, there's ways you can do it, but it's when I speak to the athletes, it's often the thing that they're like, look, I'm interested to see how I go when I come straight off the run back into the swim. There's certain athletes who are known and renowned for sustaining their performance in that sort of second and third leg better than others, right? And it's not to say that they're better endurance athletes typically, but actually how do they hold their pace in the swim when they've actually just been giving themselves that absolute flat out effort on the bike and the run? Is just a really different stimulus that these athletes have to kind of remind themselves of. So yeah, we're looking at it's a 200-meter swim in the pool. Obviously, that's something that we haven't taken out of the real world at this stage. So we talk about it as a hybrid racing, obviously. So you've got 200 meters in the pool, and that's all awesome. You get to see really kind of where people are at, and that's all coming together. But then as they jump onto the bikes, everything now transitions into the virtual world. So you'll see that they start taking on that 2-kilometer circuit, as Matt said, on the bike. They'll go twice through in each leg, so it's a 4-kilometer bike, and then it's a 1-kilometer run in each leg. And they'll use we use the curved treadmills, athlete powered treadmills, and then there's some really great technology, the runs meters that allow us to really read to a very accurate degree the speed at which they're going, and that's the data that's coming through to MyWhoosh, and ultimately is telling the avatars who's moving at what speeds and who's leading the race, and that's all going to be projected up there in the virtual world. So that's all happening on the big screen, so fans are seeing what's going on in front of their eyes with all the data of heart rates and speed and and various things that can kind
It
of give you
was
that insight.
it was super interesting to watch. I didn't know what to expect last year because I'd not seen it in that space, and it was a bit of sensory overload. It was, these people are swimming and then they're on the bikes, and you don't know whether to look at them on the bike because you can see them, or whether to look at the avatar in the virtual world, and then
Yeah,
they're
right.
getting on the bike, and then someone's jumping back in the water, and you think, let's hope they don't cramp up here as they've just come off that treadmill. And it was really cool. It was a really, really good experience that I was there. I'm super proud that we're part of it this year. I think the event will be bigger and better because of our involvement. I think there's the amount of time, effort that we've put into this new world that's coming. I'll have to figure out when we're releasing that to the community. I'm not sure whether we're going to allow anyone on this one until after the event, or whether we're going to use it in the build-up. I'll have to have a bit of a chat with the team about that. I've not given that any thought because we're only 8 or 9 weeks away now, so that's an interesting one. So I have to have a think, because it's going to be an awesome little circuit for some criterium racing and things like that in the future as well. So there's lots of multi-purpose things there for us. But look, we can't wait. It's pushed us, this one. So I'm really proud of us jumping on board and doing something different here, because it's pushed our team to do something that they weren't comfortable with. Is not the right word, but they're out of our comfort zone. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun on the 5th of April.
I just hope I get to watch a bit this time, Matt, because at the World Championships, I was so busy technically, and you were at the front watching. So I'm wondering if we can switch roles this time, because you've seen it already.
What I'd like to do this time is not just have my heart in my mouth the whole time that something's going to fail or something's going to go wrong or whatever, and can actually sit and enjoy all the hard work that's been put in by the Supertri E team, and sit back and watch. So hopefully this time will be a bit more enjoyable for you and I, Si, but we're going to have to come out of this, mate, and start to prepare for UCI 2025. So it's never ending here at MyWhoosh with these things these days, and there's a few things that we'll be announcing soon happening in between. So, it's go for us. But look, this has helped us fast track our product and our game. And that's what I really like. It's pushed us. It's a great relationship. I think you can tell that Chris and I get on pretty well, and we get on well with Michael. And there was no beers with this challenge either that Chris has got put in place with his running. We were in Saudi, so it was not sitting around a table talking like it usually would. Maybe after Supertri E. So yeah, we can't wait for him to do his 10K on the weekend and see how he goes.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that result there, Chris. You mentioned something there, just briefly. I just want to step back a little bit. Did you do multiple times this circuit of swim, bike, run, and then back in the pool then?
Straight back in.
Right? Just so everyone's clear. I heard that, and I thought they were just doing one lap, but then you mentioned the back in the pool straight away. So there's multiple laps, Chris.
Three times through. So Supertri format, and so I probably could have made this more clear at the start. So Supertri, what we've done is we've condensed the racing right down, but we send them through 3 times. Okay, so they do 3 consecutive triathlons back to back. All right, so yeah, you've got a super short swim, bike, run, and then straight off the treadmill at Supertri, they'll be coming back into the pool and going again. So yeah, this year we've simplified the format. I know I spoke about innovation at the start. Like as we say, sometimes it's just actually let's take it away. Last year we had some rest periods, and with that rest period, it was a chance to recalibrate. We would then do a staggered start for the second and third time through. This year we're just going straight traditional Supertri format, 3 times through from the start, and yeah, back to back. So there's no respite, no rest at all. And look, I think it's a really fascinating challenge. And one of the things that I think as we put ourselves into the future and say where do we want to really take this, we want people to get the opportunity to experience this themselves, and that's the long view on this one. We've had a chance to do it in select ways, right? So some of our partners have done it, and this year I think on the Friday we're hoping to run an event on the Friday where again some of our closest partners and some of our key stakeholders are going to get the opportunity. We might get you guys in some tri-suits out there.
I actually just started to get those cold sweats on because I was just thinking, please,
I didn't know whether I just spring it on you. It happened, Matt, the week before, but but actually, as we kind of look at what's the reason why we couldn't take this into something where, with the right venue support, we can put this into the hands of the community. I've look at sports like High Rocks and how they're progressing, right? 650,000 athletes are going to do High Rocks this year. And that's leveraging technology of rowing machines or the ski ergs and actually giving those experiences for people to come and benchmark themselves and give that type of benchmark workout. I think that's a really interesting space that we can go into with the right venue partners and the right vision for the future. So look, it's a watch this space at the moment on that, but I think that's where there's an opportunity. And if you ask me, what do I think the future of Supertri E could be? I think Supertri E could be the biggest triathlon event in the world through participation numbers. I think it could be the biggest participation event in the world. Now, how do we do that? That's going to take a bit more work from both sides here to come up with that plan. But actually, I think decentralizing it and putting this into the hands of the community is something that we're really passionate about doing in the long run.
I think there's still a lot of positives. Mentioned there about taking stuff away. You've got that tactical side with your Supertri, right? And I've seen those short shoots that you do, and there's tactical decisions in the team and stuff. And on the E side, Matt and I have discussed this lots, right? You should add some gamification, but you don't want to add gamification for the sake of gamification. It's got to play a role. It's got to have a reason to do that, and it's got to be entertaining for the right reasons as well. Not just a cheat code, if you like, to win a race or win an event, which I think is really important. But as you said that, I think I could see a future where my local, in the UK, Chris, we have got leisure centres, right, which are these local authorities which schools have access to, clubs have access to. I mean, our local pool here has got a gym, it's got treadmills, it's got bikes, it's got the pool, and it's accessible to schools. Those people are already going. So I could really see a future where, again, we're combining this technology. I've got 5 kids. My oldest one is constantly on the phone, like you said before, and combining that, I think, would be a really interesting way to entertain that as well. And I guess it's the hope is, Chris, that this becomes a vehicle to maybe identify or nurture some younger talent through as well into the longer form or the traditional forms of triathlon, I guess.
For sure. I think what we're seeing with elite, the elite side of endurance sport is that athletes are getting to that top level of performance much younger than they used to. And I think that's largely down to the ability to access high level training and that level of coaching, but also platforms like MyWhoosh earlier in their journey to get that volume in and to actually establish the base required to go and be competitive. Like we're seeing it in triathlon, younger athletes that typically, athletes are peaking much sort of further along, that's coming forwards. And that tells me that, young people are really getting the bug for endurance sport and it's there. But as you say, I do think there's things we can do with it, looking at those satellite type events for schools and others. So we actually have some live conversations there, Si, and I'm really excited to explore that further across multiple different regions at the moment about how do we take Supertri and put it into the hands of, say, schools, universities, and other institutions who can kind of use it as an engagement tool and create that benchmark that people can feel inspired by. That's a really meaningful goal for us.
Well, Matt's going to pick me up on something because I've just picked myself up on something there. I just said again, Matt, that this could be a vehicle to the traditional form of the sport. But in reality, I think, Matt, you and I have had this discussion in the past that it would with some people. But in reality, we see it as a standalone sport, both as cycling esports and, Supertri E as standalone sports with their own future ahead of them.
Yeah, I liked Chris's analogy there of that Hydrox thing, and I'm a massive Lance Armstrong fan. I'm not going to hide from that, and you see that he's involved in that type of stuff, and you see the numbers involved, and it's an evolution of, I don't know whether it's CrossFit or I'm not from that type of background at all, but there's all these people do it, and guess what? They all do it inside. Right, it's not something that you have to really go outside and do. It's a similar environment to what we have, but it's interesting, and it's about the entertainment. It's about the pushing yourself. It's about the combination of all of those things. But sitting here, and it's probably not great for this conversation now, but we mentioned Fortnite and those things a little while ago, and the kids and the engagement, and Fortnite skins and all of those style of things. Whether it comes across to here. I muck around playing Fortnite, right? Because my daughter plays Fortnite, and I had my first victory royale or battle royale or whatever it is. I killed all these kids. I'm a champion of this thing. Even though it matchmakes with people that are terrible like I am, I want to tell you guys more about that than what I've done on my bike today, right? So there's so much something in this entertainment piece in what we all get. And I think we'll have this conversation in 2 years' time, and it will be heavily influenced by the combination of gaming and indoor virtual endurance sports. And I think that with the help of Supertri, with our other partnerships, with the leadership that we have within MyWhoosh, the ability in which to be able to do this on the engine that we're built on, I think that's where we're going. So exciting times ahead for all of us.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah.
We haven't. One thing we haven't mentioned here, Si, is kind of the mega event opportunity that is around the corner for our sport. And obviously, I think the IOC and their movement into that, Matt, you've kind of shined a light there on just the prominence of gaming and esports, and they are two separate things. I think of gaming very much as kind of that exercise, and esports is that competition. If we're trying to take the sort of gaming and esports into what we into our realms. But yeah, obviously the IOC's move into that. We were part of the Olympic Esports Week back in 2023 in Singapore, and I think, you know, it's not my good work, but the team prior to me have positioned us really, really well as one of the sports to be included as a medal event there in the IOC's Olympics Esports Games, which have been announced and obviously coming up. So it's super exciting time, because that's going to put this on the map in a much bigger scale. Obviously at the moment, a lot of our reach is within probably the endemic community and those kind of adjacent communities where we engage, as we've spoken about here, runners, swimmers, cyclists, who kind of get drawn in by something quite different, technology driven, and they see it. You know, a lot of my friends and people that I'm trained with or have sort of been close to over the last few years, they probably know more from Supertri about Supertri E. They've seen more Supertri E than they have of our outdoor real world racing. Because for them, it's something that is different, and it's associated more with that kind of everyday fitness dimension, rather than maybe the world of triathlon, which they don't necessarily associate themselves with. So how do we make ourselves and drive ourselves into that space of kind of broader fitness is obviously a massive opportunity.
So just before we let you go then, Chris, just want to give us a bit of an idea of how can the community get involved with both Supertri E and obviously some of the activities that you've got going on in the next couple of months in the lead up to the event.
Yeah, so there's going to be loads of stuff coming up. So Supertri E specifically, in the build-up, we're going to be running some really awesome community rides, just chances for anybody, wherever they are in the world, to get involved. We're going to be pushing those out heavily towards our participation events, and it's probably worth mentioning, we haven't really touched on it today. I spoke about Chicago, but we've got some really exciting announcements coming out in the next couple of weeks on our end as we continue to grow our mass participation events. So obviously we were started as a professional racing, and as we've evolved more and more, we're starting to build those direct touch points with athletes. And yeah, so serving that community of participants who are going to be doing our races largely across North America, but we're also in Europe as well on that side of things, and giving those opportunities to come and participate also alongside some of our professionals in some of the cafe ride series. Matt, I know that we're part of that as well. So there's loads of stuff that we're doing on the platform. In terms of actually coming to the event itself, 5th of April, kids come free. So anyone under 12, there's an opportunity to get a free ticket. It's a massive part of our mission is to get young people to see this format and really engaging with it. So yeah, you can get onto our Supertri E website and find tickets to come and join us on the 5th of April in London. So yeah, it's exciting. There's loads of ways to get involved.
And the best part is,
Matt,
Matt,
you and I have got to get training.
We're going to get training, but I'm not going to break any secrets here, but I also have a little bit of an idea of some of the announcements that are coming up with Supertri and some of the locations they may be heading for mass participation this year. I'm going to kit up and attend one. There's one in a place where I've always wanted to go and do something like this. I think it'll be fantastic. So I'll be kitting up for a Supertri event later this year as well, with a little bit of luck if those rumours and stories are true. So I can't wait for those announcements to come up. I can't wait for Supertri E. I'll be there, you'll be there, Si, Chris, obviously you're going to be there. Our audience, whether it's cycling, triathlon, swimming, running, whoever listens to us and is involved in MyWhoosh, track us down, come and say g'day. I'm sure you'll find us, after the event or the afternoon before somewhere local. Happy to sit down, have a chat, send us a message, do all the things that you do to keep in contact with us. And it's easier to, for our UK audience to come and have a chat with us this time too, Si. They don't have to come all the way to Abu Dhabi to see us. So hopefully we get a heap of, what do we want to call them, MyWhooshes, is that the right word? Or whooshes, or whoever we want to come
Let's
down.
go with that.
SRC races, triathletes, everyone that's, maybe see if we can all get together and have a chat, all things, I suppose, cycling, triathlon and esports.
Yep, it'll be an exciting weekend for sure. And like I say, we better get some training as well. You get a bit of a reputation, Matt, for committing yourself to these
know,
things,
haven't
doing
done any
these
of them.
podcasts that you can't get out of.
Yeah, but I haven't done any of them. I was doing an Everest in January as well. I vaguely remember us agreeing to at some point. Haven't done that yet. But no, I really do want to pull the speedos, the aero bars out, and do a triathlon this year. I think the swim and the bike will be okay. It's the long walk at the end of it that's going to be the drama for me. But anyway, let's see how we go.
Well, mate, I'll be holding you to it.
We always try and hold him to it, Chris. Chris, it's super cool to have you on the show today and talk all things Supertri E and MyWhoosh and all the activities that are coming up. But say I've done some actually the VODs that some of your athletes have done recently as well. So I'm looking forward to the community to see those in the next couple of months as well. I know also we're going to have you back on the show closer to Supertri E as well, or maybe just after to talk about those results and what happened at the London Aquatic Centre in April. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening to the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you soon for another Inside the Ride by MyWhoosh.
On this journey we'll guide inside the ride where we fly.